Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Jeremy Corbyn. So the BBC was caught obfuscating information, changing information, you can call it lying and cheating, and had to roll back and apologize for their lying and cheating. Now this is pretty fucking amazing. So there was a budget speech that Jeremy Corbyn gave where he gave this blistering rebuke of this guy who was standing there being an asshole for all intents and purposes on the Tory bench. This is the rebuke that Jeremy Corbyn gave. Let's see if I can find it. Where is it? All right.
He said in 2015 they would fund another 5,000 GPs. But in the last year, 1,200, we've had 1,200 fewer GPs. And we've lost community nurses and mental health nurses. The Chancellor promised 10 billion in 2015 and delivered 4.5. So if you don't mind, we'll wait for the small print on today's announcement. But even what he said certainly falls well short of the 6 billion Labour would have delivered from our June manifesto. Over 1 million of our elderly aren't receiving the care they need. Over 6 billion will have been cut from social care budgets by next March. I hope the honourable member begins to understand what it's like to wait for social care stuck in a hospital bed or other people having to give up their work to care for them. The uncaring, uncouth attitude of certain members of to be called out. Order.
The uncaring, uncouth attitude of some members across need to be called out. That entire budget speech, that rebuke that Jeremy Corbyn gave, that speech literally boiled down. He started reading names of people who were sending him letters, going into very specific situations, essentially saying, your budget is going to affect people in horrendous and disgusting ways. And this particular guy over there is being a complete asshole, and Jeremy Corbyn goes after the guy. That's what took place in reality. Now, these guys showed something different. A less forceful Jeremy Corbyn, a less alpha male Jeremy Corbyn. And they got caught switching the evidence, or switching the tapes, switching the stories. Now, this is Squawk Box. I don't know who Squawk Box is, but apparently the BBC had to, let's show the article. BBC forced to publicly correct after Squawk Box exposes fake news. Fake news. Earlier today, Squawk Box exposed false news broadcast last night by the BBC's Newsnight program. Newsnight claimed, and by the way guys, you spelled your program wrong. I'm joking. Newsnight claimed to show Jeremy Corbyn's response to Philip Harmon's budget yesterday, but in fact showed a far less powerful clip of his response to the spring budget in March. They showed something that took place last year or earlier this year. That's interesting. How can you make that mistake? I mean, you're calling yourself Newsnight. That's the opposite of news. That's the opposite of news. You have one task: not to show shit that's not actual news, not to show bad shit, not to show stuff that's wrong. That was fake news. Now, you can imagine some cynical SOBs are out there wondering if you did that on purpose. If you did that on purpose. I don't know what news is like in Britain. I've only been in Britain once. The news in the United States, for the most part, are brain-dead zombies that essentially repeat the same thing with a slightly different tint depending upon whether you're looking at it on Fox, MSNBC, or CNN. All of them tell a particular narrative. That narrative boils down to this ideological thing and this cultural thing. They're robots. I don't necessarily know if those people are telling those narratives because they believe those narratives, or if they're telling those narratives because they're prodded to tell a particular line. I have no clue. When the President of the United States decides to fire off missiles into Syria because he wakes up one morning and says, oh my God, they're dead babies. Never mind that he himself has killed hundreds of people in these air raids and bombings, many of which were babies. Never mind that. He didn't wait for the Syrian canister to be identified as being from the Syrian government or from the rebels. He fired off a missile into a foreign country. The news media didn't ask the question of why does a president have the authority to fire a missile into a country that did no way is attacking us. We're not at war with Syria, supposedly. We don't, Congress, at the very least, has not declared war in any particular way. I would argue that if you're invading a particular country and you're shooting missiles into that country, by definition, you're at war with that country. And you can create, these slippery definitions of stuff to try to say, whoa, no, that's not war, that's conflict. That's conflict. It's not torture, it's enhanced interrogation. You can play whatever legal trick that you want, but it sounds immensely weird for you to be attacking a country that we're not at war with. Any kind of conflict that you're talking about is within the confines of a particular war. Otherwise, why are you sending a missile into a foreign country? News media doesn't ask that question. They don't ask whether the president gets the authority to do this. Congress hasn't declared war in this case. How does the president get the authority to do this? Nobody is attacking us. Nobody is attacking our interests. How does a president get the authority to do this? Media doesn't ask that. Media goes with this narrative of the president. This is the first time Donald Trump has looked like a president. Murdering people and sending off an illegal missile strike. That is the first time he looks like a president. So I'm just saying, these people have a particular narrative. If you bring up Iraq, their eyes go over. They glaze over. Chuck Todd will have this conversation about potentially invading another country, completely oblivious to the United States invading Iraq and murdering 1 million Iraqis. Oblivious. We made a mistake in our piece last night. We wrongly used a clip of Jeremy Corbyn responding to this year's spring budget. Here's a clip from yesterday that should have appeared. I'm sorry, we didn't show the more forceful one. We showed the more polite Jeremy Corbyn. Not the guy who's literally beasting out over this other guy being an asshole with regards to what he's talking about, meaning he's talking about poverty that's in Britain. One guy is a defender of workers and the poor and the 99%. The other guy was an asshole for the plutocrats. That's what they didn't show. Note that there is no apology, nor did the program respond to Squawk Box's press request for comments sent before publication of the expose. Social media activists have demanded that the BBC properly corrects its mistake by apologizing in full at the top of the broadcast tonight, showing the proper clip in full, providing a proper explanation, and correcting its lasting record of the broadcast on the BBC iPlayer. Fix your failure. Fix your failure. That's what they're asking. Fix your failure. It remains to be seen whether the BBC would do so, whether it would fix its massive, colossal failure. The BBC has attributed the misleading broadcast to a mistake. It's a coincidence. It's quinky-dink. If one of the new left media had made a similar error, the outrage, the dogpiling, and calls for it to be closed or prescribed will be heard in neighboring countries and still echoing 6 months from now. You failed. Fix your failure. The guy is running, he's in labor. He's the head of labor. And you're going to show a weaker clip. Now, I understand you guys may say this is just a mistake. Fair enough. Fix your mistake. If you're going to show it, at the very least, show it on the exact same broadcast to which you showed a fuck up. My 2 cents. I don't live in Britain. I always put the caveat in that you can tell me to go fuck myself. But what I'm saying is absolutely true. You guys fucked up. You're supposed to be the news. You have one job, and that's to get the news right, and you got it wrong. Fix your fuck up. I'm going to leave it at that. Alright, if you enjoy the content, BBC has no idea who I am. So I have no expectation for the BBC to do it. But if the BBC sees this video, maybe they would be inspired to fix their failure. Fix their failure. If that wasn't intentional, if that wasn't on purpose to undercut the guy, then fix your goddamn failure. That's my perspective. from a neighbor across the pond. Across the pond. Alright, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys.